Welcome to this instructional educational session. We're going to be talking about hydration and specifically testing so you know what hydration you're shooting for during a race. Especially when you're looking at races, it could be in 7.3. It's in May, which typically could be cooler, but when you're looking at Chattanooga, you're a little bit southern, even if it's only in the 70s or 80s, but if you have 75% humidity, hydration can become an issue, especially on your bike out there. You're kind of sweating away, and over time, you just kind of sweat away, any kind of reserves you got, and you could be in a deficit when you hit that run out there. So we're always talking about hydration during the run, during the bike. Drink your water and everything like that. What exactly does that mean? I typically tell my athletes, I recommend that if you're getting to a point during a race and you're thirsty, and you're trying to drink the thirst, you're kind of already behind the curve. You're kind of already a little bit dehydrated. And, and once you get to that point where you're kind of like craving water, you just need water, especially if you've done a training ride or training run and it's hot outside during the middle of the summer and you come back in and you just cannot get enough water to drink. That means you pretty much started that workout dehydrated. You just ran yourself into the ground and didn't hydrate during the workout as well as you should have. And then you just kind of hit the ground. And luckily, it's just a workout. You don't have to do anything afterwards. But you're doing a race and you don't hydrate properly and you don't know what your targets are. Do I need to drink 12 ounces an hour? Do I need to do 24, 48? I am a very huge salty sweater. So basically the conditions be, if I'm indoors running on the treadmill 75 degrees, into an hour run on the treadmill, I'm just covered in sweat. The treadmill's covered in sweat. There's sweat puddles everywhere. Regardless if it's the middle of winter, when it's 27 degrees outside in the morning, it doesn't matter. I sweat profusely and it's very salty. So I need to be cognizant of what my sweat rate is so I make sure to replenish it, especially at events like I said, I've done Chattanooga 70.3 in 2018. The race in the morning was perfect. Started out, the bike ride wasn't bad at all. The sun kind of popped out and it got a little bit humid. Even days before, it would kind of rain, but it couldn't really tell if it was raining, if it was just humid, and you just kind of would walk around and you just get wet. It was even more so. I live in Kansas City and it gets pretty humid, but at that point in time in May, I didn't really expect it to be that humid. And you go down there and it's just kind of like you're just walking around and you feel like you're just getting a little bit of moisture, and that's kind of explain it. But you know what hydration targets you're typically looking for during your training, you kind of adjust them to conditions like that because it's going to play a key factor in your race day if you're not properly hydrated, especially on the bike, doing the proper hydration, setting yourself up for a good run. So we're going to dive into kind of the testing. So how can you figure this out, especially during the off season right now? This is the best time. You're doing workouts. You can have the little bit of downtime because we're not doing super long, have a lot of volume going on. Now's the time to get to the nitty gritty and do some testing to figure out, where exactly am I at with my hydration? Now, if you look online, there's all kinds of professional testing. You could do sweat rate tests and send in documentation and like little vials of your sweat and all kinds of other fun stuff and have it analyzed for all this other stuff, minerals, electrolytes, everything that's in there, and your fluid loss. And they can send you back to all this information. That it's great. You could plug this into, potentially other manufacturers of any kind of like Scratch or Infinite or anybody else that kind of will tailor a mixture of their product in water to kind of gear towards what you're losing per hour, especially if you're a salty sweater, if you're not that heavy of a sweater, maybe you don't need that much. And usually there's a fee, some are bucks and you kind of get what you pay for. If that's not on your kind of target range or it's not on your radar anywhere, you can do it yourself. It's pretty straightforward. Just requires a little bit of proper, I guess, spreadsheet work or just keeping a log somewhere to make sure you're a little bit organized, keep track of your data. Because if you're not doing it on a consistent basis over time, just doing it one time for a bike ride and one time for a run is really not going to help you out in the long run, because you need to get the kind of bigger picture over time, different conditions, kind of what's going on. Especially you got to separate out, the biking from running, because it's different kind of modalities that require a different kind of energy and produce a different kind of sweat level. Because especially on the bike, you got the wind going by, it cools you just a little bit, especially have a good tri suit that helps keep you cool on the bike or keep you cool on a run. So you got to take that in consideration as well. So if you're going to do it yourself, here's a quick rundown. When you're doing your workout, you weigh yourself before in the clothing that you're going to do it in, or you go strip down to your underwear, whatever you're going to do, whatever you wear when you weigh yourself before, you got to weigh yourself after. So if you're going to do it in your tri kit or whatever, just have it on, have everything on, you ever weigh yourself, and that's what you weigh yourself in afterwards. But make sure, I didn't add this in there, after you weigh yourself after, wipe off excessive sweat. So if your clothes are still kind of wet, take a towel and just kind of, get that extra sweat that's just kind of trapped in your suit, because that's a little bit of misleading that you potentially could be losing that, but it's just stuck in your clothes and hasn't evaporated off. Especially if you're wearing like a cotton t-shirt or something like that and it's just saturated. That's why I recommend, if you're doing your Under Armour undershorts, so I would weigh yourself before in that and then after in that, and just kind of wipe it off as much as possible to get all that swass out of there, so you're not kind of diluting the weight before and after. But weigh yourself before, do your workout. I recommend you could do it with the Zone 2 stuff. You could do it for an hour. I wouldn't do anything for less than an hour, but for your long rides, long runs especially, weigh yourself before and after. It gives you a good idea of what you're going on, and what you're losing over that workout. But, you could do it your intense workouts, you could do it your tempo workouts. I would just make a note, one of these things, track the conditions. So you're going to track your conditions. So what kind of workout you're doing, what the weather conditions are. Are you inside? Are you in your basement? It could be a little bit cooler than what you have your other house temperature set at. So, humidity, you can get that stuff. Like if you have a Nest, that's kind of nice. It has humidity listed on there, so you can write that down. So make your spreadsheet and have, the day, type of workout, have the temperature, humidity, if you can get it. And that way you have a good time each one of these workouts, how long it was for, and then your weight before and after, and then you can set up your spreadsheet to figure out what your actual loss of fluid is over that. So it's not a true exact science, but it's better than just kind of guessing. So especially in the workout, try to avoid having to go to the bathroom, because if you're losing fluid that way, it kind of throws it off a little bit, because technically it's still inside you. It just hasn't sweated and evaporated out and peed it out. But you also want to subtract any fluid you drank in your workout, because that will be in your body, and that's not, you want to treat your body as its own little ecosystem. So anything in and out, the only thing out you want is sweat. You don't want anything in, technically. So if you're eating food, you're going to have to subtract that weight out, and food's a little bit tricky. So that's why it's kind of tough over the longer workouts, especially if you're eating nutrition over that longer ride or run, to take that in consideration. But definitely fluids, if you're drinking anything, subtract those out of there. If you've done 12 out, 2 bottles on the bike or 5 bottles on your bike ride or whatever, or if you're drinking one in your morning workouts or something like that. I'm pointing over there in my pain cave, I have my little bottle of hydration I drink in the morning for my workouts, keep me going. So track that out. So you got another column, you got the date, you got the type of weight before, you've got anything you drank, and you got your weight after. And then you can calculate your loss per hour. So it's just basically whatever the difference is in your weight before and after, and then convert your time of your workout into your hours. And that's kind of what you're looking at per hour. That's not your goal to replenish, but that is your goal, especially coming off the bike. You want to be minimum or maximum 2 to 3% dehydrated. So you're looking at replacing, 90-95% of that fluid loss by drinking over your workouts. So that's we'll take a step back. So you get all this information, that's like one workout. But like I said, you want to do this over multiple workouts. So in your spreadsheet, you'll have multiple days. So you can keep track if it's a run or a ride, because that's going to be different. Your sweat rates are a little bit different for each type of workout. But you want to have multiple workouts. You want to do this over time, potentially months of information if you have it, because you could get very accurate information over time. It kind of wiggles out all the little inconsistencies over time over each workout. So you can average that at the bottom of your spreadsheet, have runs and rides over time, over the conditions, and then you can possibly sort your spreadsheet, for weather conditions. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff on what's the break point of 50% humidity and above. What's that? Temperatures of 75 degrees and above. What's my sweat rate? So if you're looking, especially like Ironman Chattanooga 70.3, it's in May. So maybe you want to look at conditions where, it's above 75 degrees and humidity is above 50%. How do you fare in those kind of workouts? So you kind of filter those out and take into account the only ones that kind of apply to your race conditions. Maybe do an Ironman in Florida, and like this year, it was only in the 30s, and I think the highs got in the 50s to 60s. So you want to go back and you want to say anything below 70 degrees and anything on a nice easy day, because you also don't want to drink too much because you get hyponatremia, where you have too much fluid in your system. You dilute all of the minerals, the pH balance, you throw all that stuff out of whack, and you're almost kind of drowning yourself from the inside. So you want to be careful. You don't want too much. You don't want too little. You want to be right there in between. So having this stuff over time, especially in the off season, now's the time to sit down and make a little spreadsheet, and perhaps that's something I kind of make up later and distribute out there. Keep track. And I do this for my athletes, my one-on-one athletes. We do periodic sweat testing. I ask them to put this information in their training peaks information. So they go and they do their workout and they put comments afterwards, weight before, weight after, and look up the weather conditions. What's nice is, it has time of day on training peaks. And if you can look up where they're at, you can find that information pretty quickly. So for my one-on-one athletes, I'm definitely tracking this kind of information, because you want to make sure that you've got that right. And you make sure that you're paying attention to the conditions of your race. So if you track this over time, so if you start in November and your race is a year later, so if you've got all this information over a year to track, you got 2 to 3 workouts per week. This gives you great information for an Ironman in Florida. You're running into it, you're like, oh man, temperature is a little bit lower than what I was expecting. I'm gonna go back and sort my data just for that information. Or you're starting in November. It might be a little difficult especially for an event like Chattanooga 70.3 that's in May, that's early spring, but the conditions are a little warmer and humid down south. So if you're in a place like Kansas City or Minnesota or someplace north, where you're just not going to get those conditions, but maybe there's an opportunity, you're working out in your basement, you put some, so you can at least adjust it a little bit as you're doing your training. So you have months and weeks of information, so you're a little bit more accurate, because as Lionel Sanders in 2019 said at the World Championships, he just completely spaced out on nutrition. Hydration is part of that. So if you're coming in off the bike into T2 and you're dehydrated and you're like 8 to 10% dehydrated, you're in trouble. You're not going to make your goals. Probably end up walking, and it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be fun. So you could be doing this now as you're going through doing your off-season program, doing those workouts. Especially you get to a 90-minute workout, it's great information to have. 60-minute workouts, anything less than that, it's a little but this gives you can average it and find out some good stuff for biking the run. If you got any questions on that, you want an example or anything like that, put a comment or reply back to the email for the video, and I'll get you anything I can and help you out.